Okay, hello. Today we'll talk about two North American architects. We'll start with Walter Netsch, an interesting architect who worked for SOM, Skidmore, Owings Merrill, a very important and large architectural firm in the United States. He became a partner there, but he built some very almost personal buildings in a company which cultivated quality, and it does continues to do so, but not necessarily a personal, almost idiosyncratic architecture. But Walter Netsch was a very personal architect within this very large firm, phenomenon, SOM. So Walter Netsch, born on February 23rd, and he died on June 15th, and that's the reason we talk about him today. He died 15 years ago on June 15th. Was an American architect based in Chicago. He was most closely associated with the brutalist style of architecture, as well as with the firm of Skidmore, Owings and Merrill. In short, SOM. His signature aesthetic is known as field theory and is based on rotating squares into complex shapes. He may be best known for as the lead designer for the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and its famous Cadet Chapel. The Cadet area at the Academy was named a National Historic Landmark in 2004. He was a fellow of the American Institute of Architects. This was the man, and he died at 88. An interesting architect. Here he is with another important architect in the same firm, SOM, on the left, but Gordon Bunshaft. But the one on the right, he does look a little bit strange with that alpine sweater on him. I imagine he was a very special man, maybe a little difficult, but that's how geniuses are, it is said. I don't know if he was a genius, but he was an interesting architect. And I think his sweater kind of testifies to it. I mean, the other man is with in a suit, yes, with a little bit of a sweater underneath the coat. But look at Walter Netsch, not only he has a winter coat in his hands, but also this, skiing sweater, alpine sweater on him. Well, here he looks more like a partner of SOM. Not SOS, but SOM. I actually wrote once a short article on SOM. I said SOS, but not SOS. SOS meaning danger. But the truth is they do build occasionally some almost adventurous buildings. Here he is in his older age, in his house. Itself kind of a architectural manifesto, Walter Netsch. The strange thing is that I actually worked in the campus of Northwestern University in Evanston, Chicago, or Evanston, Illinois, without knowing that actually that campus was designed by Walter Netsch. I found out about this when I was already back to Romania. And now I'm beginning to show works by this architect. I don't know if he was a brutalist architect, but brutalism strangely generates emotion in us. And you wonder, how could something brutal generate affection? Maybe the so-called brutalism is actually an expression of I'm sorry, an expression of sincerity. And sometimes, yes, truth is brutal, but it's preferable to have a brutal truth than a soothing lie. much better. He did work with the geometry in unexpected ways, and you see here as well. It's I think, I mean, I am not an expert in Walter Netsch, but I do have an increasing interest in this architect, and you know, I wonder how come such a personal architect was able to work in a very, very, very large architectural firm. Usually people like him work on their own, but he worked a little bit on his own too, but he achieved success, and he built most significantly when he worked with SOM, Skidmore, Owings Merrill, where he became a partner. This manipulation of geometry, these rotations, show a certain restlessness, but a quest also for instability, but an instability which simultaneously was balanced by a sense of belonging and a sense of you know, solid implementation, if I can say so. But this is very interesting, because a large corporation, because they were like a corporation, SOM, still are, you know, to admit, to accept, and even encourage such works is very unusual. Look at the, you know, the labyrinthine, almost chaotic, you know, construction site. I read that some people are a little bit confused in his buildings because of this sense of wandering, of a labyrinth, and they get lost. But other people say, you know, I'm gladly getting lost in the buildings of Walter Netsch. You know, it's actually an organized, ordered architecture, as you can see clearly here, and is even symmetrical. But because of these rotations, the instability that I mentioned manifests itself, and you know, some people get a little bit uneasy about it. Otherwise, I think they shouldn't. Look at the plan, perfectly symmetrical. He uses the octagon. Now, I read that very recently, even Bjarke Ingels employed the octagon for a large scale site planning in Saudi Arabia. So the octagon is coming back to life in architecture, and I think that's a good thing, because there is a lot of symbolism associated with the octagon. Very important architects employ the octagon, like Leonardo da Vinci, although he didn't build, but he almost all his architectural sketches employ the octagon. And now we see Walter Netsch employing the octagon. There is also the symbolism of number 8, and if you are interested in this matter, I posted on the YouTube channel, where I post these presentations, one about number 8, but others will follow, God willing, about number 6 or number 5 or number 4. I mean, these are, you know, maybe all numbers are important, but some are more important than others. And I think maybe we should bring back to architecture you know, some of the complexities that are associated with at least some numbers. You know, symbolism, even spirituality, mythology, mysticism. Are we using numbers in this way these days? I doubt it. I mean, the last time I mentioned numbers was when I talked about Carlos Scarpa, that apparently Carlos Scarpa used number 11 all the time in his projects. And that's because there are 11 letters in his name, Carlos Scarpa. If you add all the letters, I mean, you know, the number of the letters of both his names is 11. Well, maybe it's time to count the number of letters in your name and employ that number at least sometimes in some of your projects. Even if you don't tell it, you don't tell anybody about this, because I do think it's important to bring back some mystery to our projects. Some something less pragmatic and less obvious and less mercantile. Yes, the mysticism of numbers, for example, the mysticism of the octagon. Here we had and have a very modern architect, Walter Netsch, and look at his plan. It is an expression of who he was. But these rotations, in my opinion, create a dynamic architecture, and the level of instability is actually, I would say, quality, a positive thing, not a negative one. Because if there is too much stability, death is closed. Life is unstable. Here is his own house in Chicago, in a context with some history to an extent. Let's not forget, it's the Brave New World, but the house is agitating a little bit the serenity of the historicism of the street, and it does so because this is what modernism is good at, to unsettle things. It's not a big deal, actually. It's not extravagant. I could make, and maybe I will, if I am in good shape, after these two presentations, present Bart Prince, who is a very spectacular architect, so to speak. But this house by Walter Netsch towards the outside is not amazingly different. It is different if you look at the house on the left, but not dramatically. Inside, though, the things are a little bit more complicated, and we are going to see. Look here, this is the interior of the house. After he died, it became a place for research almost. Students in architecture, come here and study and so on. There is a fluidity of the space, and also certain ambiguities. What exactly is going there in front of the sofa? The sofa is rather explicit. It is a sofa. The chair, it is a chair. But what is this thing in front of the sofa? Is it a table? What is it? It is a table, but how exactly is a little bit unclear. So I guess Walter Netsch tried to bring into the known the unknown, and I think the quest for the unknown is a desirable one. So he was very good at operating with these diagonals, with these rhomboids, with these either octagons, triangles, rotating them, rotated squares. And he was fascinated by this. By the way of being fascinated, we remember a few days ago we talked about fascination being the source of the quality of the work. And I will say again and again, please, dear students, make fascinating works, fascinating projects of architecture. Nothing less. Just tell your professor, I want to do a fascinating project. Even if you don't like it, professor, I'm sorry, I have to do a fascinating project. So do it, because in the absence of fascination, we fall in boredom, and we don't want to be bored. Look at this. What exactly is going on here? It is a stair, but something doesn't seem to make sense here. It seems that as if illogic came into the building in some form. And this, I love this, to create through measurable means a manifestation of the illogical. So again, this was his own house. But not everything is extravagant or unsettling, you know. But there are still, look at this angle here. You know, some professors would protest, would say, wait a minute, what's happening here? Well, why does everything have to happen logically or, placidly or correctly? This is an invitation to irritation, even to something which is actually part of life, very much so. Interesting house. Because towards the outside is not really alarming, but inside you can tell you can discover the restless spirit of Walter Netsch. He was a restless man, and we got an indication in this sense contemplating his alpine sweater. And here are the students in architecture and a professor or two, a large house, obviously. Look at the height of the ceiling. He was doing well, of course. Being a partner at SOM is not a little thing. Yeah. But again, this surreal manipulation of geometry is intriguing and unsettling. It's almost something a little bit devilish about it. Plenty of students now finding room in his angularly fluid house. We need provocations, dear students. Please provoke us. Please make provocative projects. Don't be, tamed by the school. Please be alive. Be yourselves with all the risks. Unsettle the professors. I think Walter Netsch would smile at you if he would know that you think unconventionally, not conventionally. Make houses in such a way that one day when, unfortunately, maybe you'll not be any longer on this earth, the students in the future will visit your house or your houses the same way these students visit the house of Walter Netsch, and look how they look. They look up. They look up with curiosity. Some take pictures. This is how architecture is beautiful, as an adventure. If it is not an adventure, forget it. Better do something else. Now I know that if you try to climb these stairs with with a piano, you might encounter some difficulties. But this is not the test that we should always employ. How do we bring the piano in the room, as if we are all conductors or piano players or I don't know what. Now look at this children home in Nelsville, Wisconsin, where Frank Lloyd Wright was born, and he even had his atelier and home, Ateliers and East. This is just the reflection, but this is the building. So again, it's a Winnebago children home. Not bad. Not bad at all. Because I think children like unexpected things, like things that are, childishly, provocative. They like to play, now children. Oh, why shouldn't we, as architects, be playful as well? Why should we make a placid rectangular space, that doesn't have anything dynamic about it, nothing provocative, nothing inspiring? That would bore the children. Let's make something that is, unique and challenging even. He employed the geometry, but he loved rotations in a devilish way, and this created a dynamic architecture. Be playful, please, because if you are not playful, you cannot be truly creative. It's very important to be playful, courageous, to laugh, to smile, to have joy. When you do architectural projects, you have to be joyous. Now look here, it's almost a house upside down, no? What he created here. But is it not so typical of childhood to, turn things around and, do unexpected things? I think so. So Fujimoto has a great success with his unconventionalism. And by the way of Fujimoto, maybe you know, he designed and built in a very, very civilized Japan an outdoor toilet, what we call in Romania o latrina. Yes, in Japan. And it's even a train passing by not far away from it. While we have them in the country, in Romania, in so many places, and everybody complains, we are not civilized. We have to have them inside the building. While in Japan, a famous architect like Fujimoto built one recently outside in a garden. Anyway, the building by Walter Netsch is a building I wish I was in when I was a child, because you have to imagine a child who is confronted, so to speak, with such an interior. There is a chance that that child becomes open-minded later on in life, because the space he is moving in is open, is not closed, is not a closed box. So there is a chance when mature, when adult, that child will make Walter Gropius smile with his saying, a mind is good if it is like works best when it is like an umbrella, open. And look at the plan. Sorry about the resolution. This is how I found it. But it's good. It's good. Walter Netsch, SOM, Skidmore, Owings Merrill. Here again, we see the drama of space. But space also implies time, because in time, if you move around within the building, you perceive various interesting things in terms of space. But there is a relation between space and time. I know we are obsessed by space, but maybe Vito Acconci was correct when he said architecture is not about space, it's about time. This is another building, an interesting one. I don't know why I show this building here. Anyway, other pictures from that home for children. And I love this picture. I really love this picture because I love the youth. You can tell that they are troublemakers. I mean, absolutely. They are all troublemakers, and I think they became even more troublemakers, encouraged by the building by Walter Netsch. Be like them, dear student, just like them. You can tell they are ready to do something mischievous. I love them. That's how the youth is supposed to be. Mischievous, to do interesting things, almost illegal things, crazy things, but they are life, no? They are the spring of humanity. These children. Library at Wells College. Walter Netsch again. Again, look at the interior. Look at the roof. Why should we have, flat roofs? Why? What's so enlightening about flat roofs? I would rather have such a roof, turbulent. Yes, a turbulent roof. Make turbulent roofs, please. Because they represent that tension, that agitation, moving towards the sky. Look what's going on here. Walter Netsch. Why did he do these things? He could have done a simple, column or whatever. Why did he complicate himself? Why did he complicate himself here? Because there is joy in that complication, and there is discovery, and there is a sense of drama, and the sense of sculpturalness, and the sense of art, and the sense of movement, and the sense of creation. Look at the plan here on the left. Truly, the more I look at his work, the more I appreciate this architect, Walter Netsch. I almost regret I didn't apply to work for SOM myself. After all, I lived for 5 years in Chicago. It was a mistake. At that time, I didn't know that such architecture was possible in that office, although I knew about them. Now, I'll show probably his most famous work. It's this cadet chapel at the US Air Force Academy, which was initially, controversial, but in time it became a very famous building, and everybody is now very appreciative of this building. So let's read a little bit about it. In 1954, Skidmore, Owings and Merrill were commissioned to design the United States Air Force Academy Cadet Chapel. So it was in 1954, no, that is almost 70 years ago. Located in El Paso County, Colorado, just outside of Colorado Springs, the chapel is of the training center for officers of the United States Air Force, which is a large, self-contained community. At an elevation of 6,500 feet, so that's about a little more than 2,000 meters, on the East Coast, on the East, sorry, I don't know, there is a telephone here. I don't understand why nobody is calling me and now somebody is calling me. And I don't know how to turn off the maddening, the maddening telephone. Please bear with me. I hope, okay, it finally stopped. It infuriates me, the mobile phone. So let's continue to read. Let's see. Okay, the 3,000-acre academy also contains housing for 8,000 people, a supply center, a hospital, an airfield, and an academic complex rising up the slope of the site. This program is split on 3 levels due to the slope, with the administration building, the social center, and the cadet chapel on the uppermost level. These spaces are used by both cadets and visitors, with the beautiful peaks of the chapel rising towards the sky attracts more than 1 million a year. Designed by SOM, Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, as part of the master plan and design of the entire US Air Force Academy campus, the Cadet Chapel was created as a single symbolic religious structure that accommodates the individuality of 3 major American faiths, thus requiring 3 distinct chapels. So this is very interesting. In one building, there are 3 religious denominations together. In creating a monumental religious building, the design incorporated a monumental structure system. 17 rows of spires rise 150 feet, so that's 50 meters high, coming to 17 points, shooting towards the sky above, using repetition to enhance the powerful essence of each massive spire. These spires are used with a tubular steel frame of 100 identical tetrahedrons that make up the structure. The south facade is the entrance of the chapel. This is rather unusual. Usually, you enter at west, which begins with a granite stairway climbing to a one-story landing that leads to a band of gold anodized aluminum doors. Although a single building, the chapel houses three distinct main worship areas on two main levels: a Protestant chapel, a Catholic chapel, and a Jewish chapel, along with two all faith rooms and two meeting rooms. The Protestant chapel is located on the upper level, and the Jewish and Catholic chapels and one all faith room are located beneath it. Another level below lies the larger all faith room and the meeting rooms. The Protestant chapel is the largest chapel and is designed to seat 1,200 people. The nave is 90 feet tall, so almost 30 meters tall at its highest peak, and measures 64 by 168 feet. The tetrahedrons form the walls of the chapel with stained glass windows in between them that progress from darker to lighter as they approach the altar, creating a beautifully lit, majestic space. Here it is. Some say that it will be a building that unites the medieval with the modern. There is also a reference to the airplane itself, because this was built for the cadets. You know, the officer was training to become pilots of this, you know, for the US Army, the Air Force Army. But this is a religious building. I wonder what the Orthodox fathers of the church in our country would think seeing it. It's huge, as you can see. But I am sure it is inspiring, not just for the tourists, the 1 million tourists who visit it, but mainly actually for the people living and working there and studying there. This is to me surprising and maybe a subject of a possible discussion. How come that the army, you know, is so innovative in its vision in terms of, you know, in its architecture? Because that's not what we usually think about the army, as being sophisticated and promoting the new and even the avant-garde. It is a remarkable building, and it was designed by SOM, but the main author is Walter Netsch, who died on the 15th of June. You see it here. Of course, there are many buildings. This is an important institution, so to speak. Walter Netsch, SOM, Skidmore, Owings Merrill. Stained glass windows. Yes, all for it. And I would say we could use it even in domestic programs or institutional programs. Please indulge yourselves. Instead of, who knows, watching TV, make a nice design for a stained glass window and incorporate it in your project, whatever the function, an architecture center or a house or an apartment building. Make a stained glass window. It's a nice exercise, and it would be even nicer if it gets built. There are so many artists who have nothing to do, you know, who are forgotten by society. Associate yourselves with an artist and create a stained glass window for a building. Now, you realize very well the scale of this chapel. It's almost a cathedral. Maybe even without almost. And you know, you look at the organ and there you see the organ, the musical instrument is not maybe, extravagantly modern. I think in such a context, with such an architectonic envelope, modern as it is, even historicist altar would look great. As you have here, these sculptures, they are figurative, but I think even better would have looked some old ones. There is another great building here built, and I'm afraid I don't have it in this presentation, that was built after Walter Netsch died. A center for, I don't know exactly how to describe it, and I don't know its name correctly. It's like a center for personal development, very, very expressive structurally, and you can find it on Google Images, searching for US Air Force Academy, and you'll see an incredible diagonal, and that's the building. The diagonals are present here too, the power of the triangle. And then the diagonals that form the two sides of the triangle besides the base. It's a very elegant but a very eloquent structure. Courageous as it is. Yes, architecture is good when it is courageous, and when it is afraid and timid and tamed, it's not so good. The Circle campus of the University of Illinois. We saw earlier a colored picture of this building. I don't know if he built the tower too, but he built this lower building covered with bricks. Not bad. Walter Netsch. And the students enjoying themselves on these steps, which can be used for going to a higher level and to sit down and talk and so on. A lot of concrete, unfortunately. Yes, at that time the concrete was not considered malevolence in terms of pollution, but it is. So today we have to be more careful about using concrete. Now look at those cars there, my God, my God. I read somewhere that 10% of the entire surface of the United States is covered by parking lots and highways. 10%. It's incredible. I wonder, is the car in the service of man, or man is in the service of the car? It's very interesting. You look at the plan. We saw this plan before, and it's the ornamentalization of functions in a way. It's clearly an effort towards some kind of an idealization, or this interplay with between octagons. It's even something Islamic here, and he probably might have protested, but anyway, I think what's beautiful about architecture is the obsession of the architects. If you have an obsession, like, in other words, well, there is a difference between obsession and love, they say. But a strong love does remind one of obsession. It becomes an obsession. And I think if you have obsessions in architecture, it's a good thing. It might be bringing you to the, on the edge of the abyss and to some form of craziness, but what would we do without this craziness? Really, life would be an immense bore. Be crazy, dear architects. Please be crazy. Be obsessed. Have great passion. If you have great passion, you do, crazy things, but some beautiful things could come into being. You know, Walter Netsch had his obsessions, but exactly these obsessions, I think, make us talk about him today. So that was about Walter Netsch. He deserves more. It's an introduction to him, and I promise the next time I'll talk about him, I will learn more myself about him. Let's talk a little bit about him, if you don't mind.